Well, hello, folks. It's me again, and this is pre-recorded. It's not streaming. Um, I was just casually curious not that long ago about certain album that I recorded, and just wondering, when did that come out exactly? When did I release that? And much to my surprise, it is, as of recording this, 3 days away from the 10-year anniversary of Bedroom Glow. Oh my god, time is going to kill me. Don't think about it. So, this was recorded, as the 10-year anniversary would suggest, 10 years ago. I'm going to move that a little bit. Yeah, I'm using the 58 for this. I thought it would be fun to go back and just kind of re-experience it and just listen to it again, kind of talk about what's going on here. Again, this is a much older project. I wasn't really... Well, I used to say I was taking my music seriously, but, I was kind of not really at the time. I'm just doing all this on my streaming setup, so when we hop over here into Ableton Live, as you can see, it's the same window as usual. There's not going to be anything going on in the chat window, so business as usual there. We're just going to at least set this up, and if I click on this, and there we go, we now have a spectrogram. Let's click this, and yeah, so... Yeah, it's been a while since I sat down and listened to this all the way through. And yeah, just tell some stories about it and reminisce, think about what I've done is kind of the main purpose here. So with all that out of the way, the album was called Bedroom Glow. The name was a reference to these things here. The light that comes off the screen. And sort of the 2015 era crisis of people having their phones with them all night. And yeah, I guess there isn't really a theme to the album. I intended there to be kind of a theme to the album, but there really wasn't one. But anyway, yeah, so track 1, Network Blues. This is an instrumental. I recorded the 2 guitar parts to a click track in GarageBand. And then I moved them over to Ableton for just like adding drums and a bass synth and what have you. And as you'll hear, there's not a whole lot of what have you going on. But we'll get into more of that as this progresses. For right now, this was kind of the track that set the tone for the record as it went.
Let's repeat that. That didn't come out right.
Okay, so that first part you heard, that was a sample of me from somewhere else, and I was recording something, and I wasn't happy with it, so I said into the microphone, I'm going to repeat that. I wasn't happy with how it came out.
Let's repeat that.
Let's repeat that.
That didn't come out right.
That didn't come out right. That's what I said. I believe that was while recording the closing track, and I just took that and kind of stapled it to the beginning. But, yeah, and then we get into it.
Let's repeat that. That didn't come out right.
that's just a moving, be a high pass filter. No, that's a low pass filter. I'm just putting that on, and it's just moving up and down. And that was mostly to try and contain the hiss that was coming off that lead guitar part. The bass is barely audible. It's entirely in the low end. Just tried to get it out of the way of everything. And largely because it's just a synthesizer. I did not have a bass guitar at the time. .808 sample library. Some of these notes are in time. See, at least with the Vapor Slime Workshop, I have the excuse that, I'm recording on a time crunch. Outside of the mix not being ideal, I think that's fine. Okay, second song is called Honesty.
Do I sound honest right now?
You sound heavily filtered.
Do I sound fragile? Do I sound like something's on my mind?
Okay, so I recorded this song. Okay, for context, before I started working on this album, I was working on a different album by the title of, it's called It Has No Feelings, and it was very much like exploring technology and music and what have you. And then my computer had a utterly catastrophic meltdown, and none of the files were salvageable in any way, shape, or form, and I had to get a new computer and start over, and this was the only song off of that I That's actually technically not true anymore, because there was a very early version of Weapon that I had recorded for that, and now Weapon is on Hello Normal. In a very different form, mind you, same lyrics, but very different, very different tune. But yeah, this was the only song that I redid from that project for this one. And so this was recorded just acoustic guitar into a single microphone, singing at the same time, just all single take, probably third take at most. And I there was something went horribly wrong. When I listened back to it, it was like it's just something about the it just didn't record right. And so the reason it sounds so filtered is because there was a lot of low end noise that had just kind of bled into the track, and I had to kind of aggressively push all that out, and that's why everything sounds really filtered. Lyrically, it's pretty straightforward. You hear the lyrics. Do I sound honest? Do I sound fragile? Do I sound like something's on my mind? And sort of playing with the idea of like he's not really honest, but just trying to present that way. Trying to sort of fake authenticity. And so this kind of, again, like the sort of sparse acoustic arrangement is sort of playing into that kind of trope of trying to appear more authentic. The only real mixing thing I did in the song was I would sort of turn up the reverb at various points. There's also a glitch in here where you'll hear this little scratchy noise, and I don't know what caused that, and I couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. And I don't know, just back in those days, I didn't. I still had a day job at the time, unlike now where I'm just a bum loser who. I won't get into it, but I really didn't have the energy. So if I had a recording, like I was going to try to get the most out of it instead of redoing it. Redoing things was just extremely demotivating back then. So yeah, a lot of why this album sounds the way it does is because of that. But yeah, back up a little bit. My mind. Into a. So the reverb's gonna start coming in. Do I sound honest right now? Do I sound fragile? Do I sound like something's on my mind? Does it make you wonder? Did you hear it? Does it make you wonder about me? Does it make you wonder? Now I really crank the reverb. Do I sound honest right now? Do I sound fragile? Do I sound like something's on my mind? Does it make you wonder? Does it make you wonder about me? Does it make you wonder? Does it make you wonder? Does it make you wonder about me? Does it make you wonder? I'm often really critical of my singing because it's something I don't. It's not a natural skill of mine. The same way that I feel like songwriting has always kind of been, it's always come to me pretty naturally. But I do think like I have a pretty limited range. I have a hard time hitting low notes. I have a hard time hitting high notes. And I think something like that where you hear it, it's sitting very much in like the comfortable part of my range, and I think I can kind of get into it a little more because of that. It doesn't it doesn't make me cringe the way some of my more ambitious attempts at singing would. Okay, track 3 is called Slidey. It's another instrumental. I really wanted to make sure that the album had like a good flow to it from song to song. And an unfortunate side effect of that is that like there's 3 instrumentals and they're all really bunched up near the beginning of the album. And I think that probably to some degree demonstrates the sort of lack of confidence that I had as a vocalist. But this song, I believe, is entirely sequenced. I don't think there's any live instruments in here. So this would have been like the precursor to sort of the Vapor Slime stuff. How about this a listen?
Let's repeat that.
Or we'll accidentally start back at the beginning. That's option number 2. A slight variation in the synth pattern. I like the music. Again, I think that the technical aspects of this are not really working for me. But that sort of organ-like synthesizer, I still think that sounds cool. And I kind of like what I was trying to do with the drum machine here, but it needed a lot more EQ and compression. Alright, the next song is another instrumental. It's called DRK Pirate Radio. And this one, I didn't really have a vision for this. It was just... I just sort of added parts until I had a thing that sounded like something. Guitar was recorded in GarageBand and brought over. And I put a whole lot of reverb on it to kind of push it into the background. I believe that's 808 library again. layered something else on top of it. I don't remember what. Another guitar, just playing some high notes. You hear them, they sort of, they play in one speaker a little before they play in the other. I think I'm using a slow gate on that, which is, it's like a noise gate, but it's sort of, the volume comes up really slowly, so it sort of works the same way as like using a volume pedal to create swells. It's a little more temperamental than that. You have to be careful how you use it. Cranking the resonance and then just sweeping through the filter. And that probably would have been like just either a square wave or probably a sawtooth. Alright, so the next song is called Word Shelter, and I'm pretty embarrassed about this one. So this was largely inspired by, there was an old George Carlin routine where he used to talk about like euphemisms, or what he would call soft language. I think the example that he used was, he would say, like, sometime in my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. The dump became the landfill. And, to use a more recent example, I think EA tried to rebrand, if you remember loot boxes, there was a brief window where, like the negative connotation of loot boxes was such that they tried to rebrand them as surprise mechanics. And so that was the initial idea, was sort of this idea of like trying to soften the language that you use to describe certain things in order to sort of lie to yourself. I'm not getting old, I'm getting older. That doesn't sound as bad. Of course, since that time, we've seen language used very aggressively as a weapon to alienate marginalized people. And yeah, I don't think some of the lyrics in this have aged particularly well. And yeah, and like I said, I just sort of felt weird about that ever since. But really the biggest problem with this song is that everything about it needed another pass. The lyrics needed a rewrite. The performance, I think the performance in and of itself is okay, but like, because I recorded the rhythm guitar and lead vocals at the same time. So when I say it's a performance, it is a performance. And I played it to a click track, but I didn't play it in time. When I went back after and tried to add drums to it, it just didn't work. So there are no drums. And again, like I said before, like the thought of redoing the whole thing from the start just was so demotivating that I was just absolutely determined to make use of the version that I had. And yeah, I don't know. Like in the end, There are good things about this song, but I think overall it misses the mark.
Let's repeat that.
Why is he starting back at the beginning each time? This thing really should have a pause button. Anyway, let's just click right there. I'm gonna be so much better. I'm gonna go somewhere better. Things are gonna get better for me soon. Well, they have to. I should also note. I'm gonna be so much. I should also note the original lyrics, or the original title to this song was The Dangers of Positive Thinking. And again, in hindsight, I wish I'd stuck with that title. I think it would have conveyed the message a little better. I'm gonna be so much better. I'm gonna go somewhere better. Things are gonna get better for me soon. I created a word today to make up for the things we'd rather not say. I gave myself. I don't think you can hear the bass in this. There's kind of a low frequency pulse. Again, I didn't have a bass guitar, and because this didn't sync up with the click track, I couldn't do a synth bass unless I manually played each note, which I was not good enough at the synth to do, or I could try to manually time the notes to the various parts, which I probably could have done. But instead, I just took a copy of the guitar track, lowered it an octave, and then filtered it to try and make it not sound like a guitar that had been lowered an octave. It really doesn't work, so I buried it in the mix. Probably shouldn't have even bothered, really. Gave myself a new name. I'm here to fix the world today, to make the bad thoughts finally go away. I should also point out I was very politically disengaged at the time. I'm definitely one of the people who I would have been susceptible to Gamergate had they not shown their true colors so soon after it had taken off. That's kind of where I was. In a weird way, Gamergate made me a leftist. I just saw the behavior and thought, I'm not going to be a part of that. So yeah, so stuff about, I'm going to fix the world today. I'm going to give myself a new name. It's just embarrassing to hear myself say those things now. Hey, I'm here to lead the way. And I wake up saying to myself, and I wake up saying to myself, and I wake up saying, I'm gonna be so much better. I'm gonna go somewhere better. Things are gonna get better for me soon. Well, they have to. Just layering a bunch of kind of reversed guitar parts, loops underneath to try and fill out the sound a bit. Guitar solo was alright. Okay, next track, A Strange Attraction to Water, Now, from a strictly technical standpoint, this one's even worse. Like, it's even weird. This was just cobbled together from parts. But in a way, like it's kind of so out there that it doesn't actually embarrass me as much. Just because I don't know, it's a more abstract, psychedelic, experimental kind of thing, and I don't know, it doesn't. I don't I don't cringe the same way. Lyrics, if I recall, is I sink in, I dissolve and become everything. We're all one. I can't breathe. It's sort of a. I don't know if I have it in me to explain what. That's kind of an if you know, you know sort of thing. But yeah, so this one again, very strange track, but a lot of just a just interesting ideas sort of thrown together and turned into a thing. I think the delay is kind of keeping time for me. Really couldn't have given that another try. One line. A whole lot of hiss and 60 cycle hum going on. This next song is called The Nobodies. Out of the whole album, this is probably the one that I actually spent the most time actually producing. Lyrically, it's kind of it. The title kind of gives it away. It's about feeling like a nobody, feeling like you talk to people and they sort of look at you like you are just not worth their time. Yeah. And this was sort of the one that I kind of tried to push at the time. It's like, hey, check this out, because it had a little more production to it than it was this actual kind of plan to this song. But yeah, so we'll just hop right into that. Someone in such a hurry. He said, I got no time for you. I got no time for you. And I met someone with a gun and a hairpiece. He said, I've got no time for you. I've got no time for people like you. So shut your mouth and get out of my way. no bass on this track, so a little more space for the drums, I guess. I don't remember what I used for the distortion on that solo. I knew someone. I might have used the Big Muff. That might have been a fuzz track. It doesn't sound like fuzz though, and I think part of that is because it's just EQ'd so poorly, and that's a big part of why it sounds so shrill. There's a second solo after the second chorus that I think the performance is better on it, but again, the tone is still pretty awful. I knew someone I used to look up to. He said, "You gotta keep up with me, my friend. You gotta keep up with people like me." And I knew someone, and he told me nothing. He said, "You're trying too hard, my friend. You're trying too hard to be like me." Yeah, so the first guy tells you to try harder to keep up, and then the second guy tells you you're trying too hard to keep up. So wait your turn and learn your place, and say hello to the nobodies. Welcome to the nobodies. Okay, so I recorded the solo before I had programmed the drums. I think I just had a straight loop that I played along to and kind of programmed in the fills afterwards. And so at that point where I was kind of lost my spot in the solo and recovered, I went back in and programmed the drums to kind of match that moment. And so I was pretty proud of that at the time. So if you listen back here. Okay, and up next is Satellites and Helicopters. And this is, in the long-standing rock and roll tradition, this is a stalker song. It's a song about being a stalker. And specifically someone who stalks you using social media. And again, there's not a whole lot of lyrics here. It's, you're not where you said you'd be. I know, 'cause I know how to follow you. You're not where you said you'd be, I know, 'cause you're not here. And sort of implying that this person knows they're being stalked and is lying about where they're going to sort of misdirect their stalker. and it kind of got the title because there's like a sound in it that sort of sounds like a helicopter. For the most part, this song, the instrumental was done first, and I decided to add lyrics to it after the fact. I was probably in a hotel room somewhere, just kind of scribbling down just random bits and thoughts into a notebook. Probably this notebook, which I don't use very much anymore. Aside from it has a bunch of, yeah, it says right here. You're not where you said you'd be. I know, 'cause I know how to follow you. You're not where you said you'd be. I know, 'cause you're not here. And yeah, so that would have been written while I was out of town. And then I just sort of, I think there was some process by which I figured out how to apply those lyrics to the song, and I think I like recorded a piano melody and then sang along to that because I couldn't get the tune right. But yeah, this was an instrumental first. And yeah. I think I got that sound with the looper pedal and then imported it. And so again, you hear sort of that reverb on the drums that is kind of pulsing and giving it that like helicopter-like sound. Hi-hat is in a different time signature than the rest of the song. It's called a polymeter. There's also some piano samples that are just really buried into the background. Guitar parts playing backwards now. Pulsing effect is on my voice as well. This was also time stretched, like to just make it fit the beat or the kind of the tempo of the song. Okay. Track 9, What I Am. So this started off as an improv. Um, I believe. How did I do this? Yeah, no, I just very quickly recorded kind of the sort of beginning part, the lyrical part, if you will. Just on, I think it was like on my phone or on an MP3 player or something. And I just had it for reference, and then I re-recorded it, but just sort of kind of played out this long bit at the end where I just kept strumming the chords and yeah, and then just sort of added instruments over top. Um, I'm gonna take a quick break and then we'll get to the song afterwards. Okay, I'm back. And so let's jump into this one. This was, yeah, this is sort of me just philosophizing, or I guess pseudo philosophizing if you want to get technical about it, and just kind of thinking about, what is it exactly that makes me who I am, and sort of coming to the conclusion that it is my mind that does it. But yeah, not a lot of lyrics. There's going to be many layers. Well, I guess not many layers, but layers of instrumentals. I think I did more volume swells on this one, but instead of using the slow gate, I sort of manually went in and automated the volume to try and get them to be a little cleaner. You'll hear that as it starts. Got my mind, it's nothing special. Collection of thoughts, visions and patterns, building narratives from chaos happening. I got my mind, I got myself. I got my mind, I got myself. I got my mind, I got myself. Got my mind, I got myself. There was a version of this early on where I tried to put on some like hand percussion to go at this part. Because again, I had actually recorded this to a click, but it just was not in time. And that was, I guess to some extent I sort of like while I was like playing shows and whatnot, it was always kind of on the singer-songwriter circuit. And so, when you do that, it's like your strumming is the rhythm, the chords are the harmony, and your voice is the melody, and that those three things kind of combine to create a song. And so I wasn't really accustomed to like actually following a beat. I was used to my strumming hand being the beat. And that only changed pretty recently. Like there's even like some of the Vapor Slime workshop tracks where like I listen to my strumming and I'm thinking like, that's still not up to par. It was really not up to par 10 years ago because it was just something that I didn't really need to do. It wasn't a problem with the electronic stuff because all of that was like, it was all programmed. It was synced to begin with. And then the acoustic stuff, you just take away the drums and let the guitar strumming be the sort of the pulse of the song. And yeah, but anyway. The solo is really shrill. This one's not as bad. Okay, so as we're coming up here on the end of the song, there was this very specific moment while I was strumming where then I just kept going like a little louder, a little harder, a little louder, a little harder, and then like you do, you just get that one last hit, and then you let everything die down. So I sort of just kind of dubbed in a lot of nonsense at this point, and just sort of layering up like overdubs of just kind of filler tracks, just things that filled out the sound specifically so at that moment I could take them all away. And it would just, like it would build and build and build and then drop off. And that was kind of what I was aiming for. You'll sort of hear it. You can kind of see it in the waveform if you look at it, but you'll hear it in about a minute.
Let's repeat that.
Provided I stop doing that. Okay, we were about right here. And then you get to hear me get up and go press stop. And I left all that in. Okay, now we're coming up on track 10. This one is called Wake Up, Wake Up. This was recorded into an MP3 player. It was a Sony Walkman, I think. And it just one of the things that it had on it was like a little PVR, so you could record notes to yourself. And I would often use that to just kind of jot down ideas. And for some reason, I just I was really into the way this one sounded. And just really into the idea of like putting this very lo-fi kind of thing onto the record, and then I sort of messed around with it, tried to make it sound like, like the pitch was kind of wobbling, like you were listening to like a really cheap tape or something. Um, and it sort of, again, it kind of fades out prematurely, and tried to make it sound like it does, because again, this was sort of made up on the spot. I hit record and I just kind of went, and there are other parts of it that didn't make the final mix because they were bad. Well, okay, that's not true. There was a bad part and then another good part after. But it just sort of made more sense to keep it really short and just cut it off early and just have it be like this little weird little cheap tape recorder thing, even though it's actually entirely digital. So that little sound at the beginning, I think that's me putting the MP3 player down in order to start recording. Wake up, you gotta wake up someday. Make up, invent your own way. Wake up, you gotta wake up someday. Make it all up, invent your own way. And all you said was this. Sneaking in the reverb. And it sounds like modulated reverb, but it isn't. Because, like I said, I put that like wobbly pitch effect on the whole thing. And so when I added the reverb was affected by the pitch wobbling, and that's what's creating that like chorusy modulation sound. And then, yeah, the low pass filter to just kind of make it sound like it died. Just meow. Maybe there was, maybe could have like had it slow down as well. I don't know. And then we get to the closing track of this thing, which is an 11-minute complete monstrosity that nobody was around to tell me to stop. The song is called Lazy, which is a slightly ironic title for an 11-minute song. And basically there is a massive, massive solo that takes up the bulk of this track, and interestingly enough was actually the first part recorded. I think I did three takes, and the first two just fell apart after like less than a minute. And then the third one just kept going. And then I went back afterwards and recorded the beginning and ending parts to sort of go with it. Lyrically, the idea again, which is something even back then was like a thought constantly on my mind about sort of laziness and like the idea of sort of being unproductive, right? And the idea that like unproductive and lazy are kind of seen as the same thing, and sort of saying like, it's kind of I don't know. But yeah, that was sort of the aim. Anyway, we'll get in on this. Might be true, I might be lazy. Then again, I might be wrong. I've heard it all, I've made the same deal. Either way, it won't be long. And if you're right, and I lost my way, I can only hope I'm too far gone. And if you came around to save me, well, you're doing a hell of a job. And again, for that section, the vocals and rhythm guitar were recorded at the same time, so that is a performance. Whereas this gigantic monstrosity that we're about to get into, well, I mean, the lead guitar is a performance, and everything else is just kind of sequenced and sort of built around it. I think I used a square wave to try and replicate the sound of a bass. And everything just has like layers and layers of like saturation and noise put on top of it. The lead guitar was recorded in GarageBand, so that would have had like an amp sim and like a sort of simulated guitar pedal, probably a simulated fuzz. But yeah, just more distortion added when I brought it back into Ableton to try and just make everything punchy. Really driving bass there, but it's very obviously a synth. Settle in, folks. We're going to be here a while. Okay, so I went into this like weird kind of bendy drony thing at this point, and just somewhere during the production process decided maybe I should change this up a little bit, otherwise it's going to become absolutely mind-numbing. And again, the thought of shortening it was just not an option. Why was it not an option? Who the hell knows? But it absolutely was not an option. So at this point, I kind of changed up the drum pattern. I think I tried to like bring in some more like delay or some echo effects to try and kind of, just make it sound like all like kind of spacey and psychedelic. And I changed up the bass for a bit. But again, that was just sort of in reaction to something that I had kind of played a little differently while I was recording it. I was just really not looking at the time while I was recording. I was listening to the click, and I was just playing away, and most of this is in time. But yeah. Okay, there was a combination of things just happened there. One was that when I went back to playing the chords, I was thoroughly out of sync with the rest of the song because the rest of the song didn't exist yet. And the other thing that happened was that I just hit record and it had been going for so long that, I don't know, there was like latency compensation or something. The sound kind of glitched out for a brief moment. And so I did do a tiny bit of editing. I edited like maybe a half of a bar out of this whole thing and tried to cover it up but like if you listen, you can really the guitar, like the recording starts to kind of get a little messy for a second here before kind of lining back up with the tune. I'll back this up a sec. And then we're kind of back in it. And then we cut back to this part. But here I'm strumming the chords instead of, like just playing the individual notes. It might be true, I might be lazy. Then again, I might be wrong. I've heard it all, I've made the same deal. They're the same lyrics as the first time. And either way, I won't be long. You're right, and I lost my way. I can only hope I'm too far gone. And if you came around to save me, well, you're doing a hell of a job. And we close with I like it, that's a take. I like it, that's a take. So if you recall, all the way back at the beginning,
Let's repeat that. That didn't come out right.
Let's repeat that. That didn't come out right. And all the way at the end,
I like it, that's a take.
I like it, that's a take. And then there's this sort of swirly backwards guitar thing that kind of closes us out. It's just a really thick flanger, I think. And that was Bedroom Glow, an album I released. Well, when this goes up on YouTube, it will have been 10 years to the day. And boy, that was a lot less painful than I was expecting. Um, but yeah, this, kind of an all over the place, very lo-fi, I guess. I still like lo-fi a lot. That's probably why. But really, everything that I might criticize about this comes down to either not wanting to do the extra work or not wanting to redo things or just not knowing how to mix. I think that's a big part of this as well, like I kind of a lot of my mixing skills come from, again, like very synthesizer based instrumental stuff, and you have a little bit more leeway with that stuff. Whereas like when you're trying to make it sound like a band, the 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 bass, just the drums and the guitars completely overpower the kind of synthetic bass tracks, and yeah. But it just goes to show where I was 10 years ago, and more than anything else, I think that's what makes this interesting. Is really just as kind of a time capsule, a photo album that I haven't looked at in a few years at this point. And really a lot of the stuff that I've kind of, it's really only in the last 3 years, I think, that I've really kind of grown as a musician and as a maker of music. And it's weird to go back to these much earlier tracks and just ask the question, like, why didn't I try a little harder? I don't know. But that's the journey. That is the journey of every musician. And I don't know. Like and subscribe, I guess. I'll see you around.